Hey, it's Matt Moscona. You found it. It's AFR LSU, your home for daily content on your favorite team, Fighting Tigers of LSU. And we're proud to be presented by BetUS, where this football season, get a 150% bonus on your first deposit and a 125% bonus on your next two deposits up to $2,000. Be sure to use the promo code YouTube150. Now, enjoy the video. It is a dead period. Does everything start to crank up again early next month when spring football starts, or is it going to get rolling before then?
Yeah, that first week of March, it opens back up, meaning that coaches can see players in person and kids can visit campuses. So right now we're in, since the beginning of February, after when that first Wednesday of signing day, the old signing day, has been a no-contact period. And all of January was open. Coaches were on the road. So, yes, you're spot on, right? Kind of that first week of March, it opens up. LSU's going to have a big junior day. A lot of teams will. And that coincides, middle of March. Spring practice gets going. And I think, guys, we were out there for spring practices. They'd have a recruit or more out there every single practice, whether a local guy or someone from outside the state. So, a big stretch coming up in the months of March and April.
I guess with it being a dead period, it was a good time for On3 to update their rankings for the 2026 class. And Shea, this 2026 class in Louisiana, we know is this bumper crop, but there was a couple of guys that moved up in the newest rankings. What are the most significant moves?
Well, probably one of the biggest was Kenny Darby out of Airline, who led the state receiving, jumping not just into the On300, but into the top 200 as the top 25 receiver. So that was overall one of the biggest jumps by anyone. I think what is entertaining about Louisiana each cycle is that we know 10-plus guys are going to end up at LSU per capita. It's Louisiana, Mississippi, those states that are always up there. Kind of year over year is turning out draft prospects. So when you look at those top 10 to 12 guys and then you look at the very top of the list, it's very top heavy this year. And it's kind of a trio of guys that are in a race to finish number one. And funny enough, all three of these guys were playing as true freshmen, and all three have been ranked at some point number one in the state, just with all the different ranking shuffles from all the major services. So you've got Richard Anderson at Carr, who's committed to LSU as a D lineman. They obviously went to state this year, or back to state. And then the familiar five stars here in Baton Rouge, over at Catholic, Blaine Bradford, one of the best safeties out there, and then Lamar Brown at U-High on campus, who can play O-line, D-line, either way. He's considered to be one of the best prospects in the trenches. So those three, have an off season, a senior season to go, and are in a pretty tight race here for kind of how that number 1, 2, and 3 will finish out in Louisiana, and what's going to be a pretty talented cycle.
We'll get right back to the video. Thrilled to tell you about our partners once again at BetUS, where new customers, you can make a deposit and get a 150% bonus on your first deposit, 125% bonus on your next two deposits, up to $2,000. Use the promo code YouTube150. Look, college football's over, but we can start looking ahead for college football futures bets. How about if we look at Garrett Nussmeier's Heisman odds for next season? It's this easy. You go to BetUS, you see the drop-down menu there on the left side for football. There's college football specials. Just like that, you'll see a lot of different things. Bill Belichick, prop bets, and whatnot. But here is the early lines on next year's Heisman. Arch Manning, John Mateer, DJ Lagway, and then how about Garrett Nussmeier at plus 800? Easy enough. A $10 bet on Nuss to win the Heisman would win me $80. I'll take a flyer on Nuss at plus 800. Couple of quick taps, and just like that, we are locked in for Garrett Nussmeier at plus 800 to win the Heisman Trophy next year. They win at Clemson week 1. You're not getting a better number than that. You can get it now at BetUS. Make sure you use the promo code YouTube150 to get a 150% bonus on your first deposit, 125% bonus on your next two deposits, up to $2,000. Enjoy the rest of the video. What about Ja'Kai? You mentioned Kenny Darby. What about Ja'Kai Anderson, who's also an LSU commit? Looks like he had a nice little move as well.
He did. I think he's probably the most slept on LSU commit early on. And they have a handful of 5, 6, I think 6 commits, all of them from Louisiana. But I think you skip over Ja'Kai, and I'm not sure why. I mean, look, he's coming out of McDonough. He landed his offer as a sophomore during the season. Then he came to camp a year ago, did really well. And then as a junior, he was right there with Kenny Darby as the first-team All-State selection, playing at a high level, went for nearly 1,000 yards receiving, but just as impressive, he, in the punt and kick return game, put up a ton of yards, had some touchdowns, was one of the better return men in the city. So I think that 1-2 punch of Darby and Ja'Kai Anderson being already committed as a pair of top 25 receivers, top 10 players in the state, and on 300 prospects is going to kind of bring LSU back. That feeling of, when people look back and say, I can't believe Malik and Brian Thomas and all these different guys were in the same class. It's every few years it happens, and I think this is one of them.
Shea, I know we've started to see a lot of these reports of official visits starting to make their way out there, and the Tigers are going to get an OV from the number one receiver in the country. That shouldn't be a big surprise, but what can you tell us there?
Yeah, Tristan Keys, coming out of we talk about your alma mater all the time. Out of my alma mater, Hattiesburg High, number one wide receiver in the country, churning him out.
There's a reason, Shea, that we talk about my alma mater all the time and not yours. My alma mater is always pumping out dudes. How about that, huh?
Your alma mater is just here in the city. My alma mater is also pumping out dudes. They just go to State and Ole Miss or Southern Miss or wherever.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay.
100%. Okay. High 5A ball, brother.
Okay. Fair enough.
And they're also the Tigers, and it is an exact replica of LSU. Just, the complete ripoff of it.
What other fight song?
It's the exact same thing. Everything's the exact same.
That's so good.
I, the Tiger at midfield.
Nice. That's so good. Why not, man? It works. Play off it.
There you go.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, Tristan Keys is the number one receiver in the country right now. Everybody wants him, but I guess people don't really realize this. And look, it's not that much different. But when you talk proximity, Hattiesburg's closer to Baton Rouge than Oxford and Starkville are. So all of them are drivable. But that just puts LSU into the conversation with a lot of these South Mississippi kids. And you see what they did in the past 2 cycles. They signed in the Pine Belt. I mean, Oak Grove, B.J. Woodland signed as a corner and playing for him this past year. And then they signed a top 100 guy in Tyler Miller on the O-line out of Laurel, another Pine Belt guy who gets on board. And I think a common thread has been Donovan Tate, who is a Hattiesburg High grad himself, played ball at both Southern Miss and Nichols, and then has been in Louisiana, been on LSU staff, got promoted here recently in the recruiting department. And being on staff for a few years now, he's had a good eye on Keys being, hey, this kid that's coming through Hattiesburg High, and they were one of the first offers, and I've had him around a ton. So Tennessee, Bama, those are teams that are kind of being talked up a good bit, but LSU's right there with them as he maps out these visits in March and April and into the summer. And we'll see how things go. But I will say, look, if you're going to be chasing and pursuing a number one prospect at his position, you've got a good shot when it's a border state kid, whether it's East Texas or South Mississippi, or like we saw this past cycle, Arkansas, where they signed the number one player in the state in Carius Kern.
Yeah. It's interesting, Shea, when you talk about the kids from the Hattiesburg area. I've always had that conversation with Richard Dixon, who's kind of from the Biloxi area, and said it was always closer for his family to come to LSU than the other Mississippi schools. So it was a very natural thing for him to come to LSU, something maybe we don't always consider, but is true. Shea Dixon on 3, the Bengal Tiger, is with us. Shea, I was also interested because we've been hearing this conversation more and more with coaches, with recruiting guys, just with prospects that we talk to. But it's so much more the focus for teams in the portal era to go after transfers as opposed to high school guys. This isn't a new conversation, but because it's just going to take longer to develop the high school guys as opposed to the transfers who could play right away. Are there guys that you're looking at in this class based on what we're expecting the roster to look like when they show up that could be impact guys in 2026?
I mean, I think you have to start with the highest ranked guys who were ranked there for a reason. DJ Pickett is a legit 6'4" prospect who got here in December and was in bowl practices. And you can argue it's the biggest position of need. Now, They have some guys coming back. They addressed it well in the portal, but I still think that his talent, the ceiling there, is one that, Matt, we've covered, you and I both. We've been on the beat every year Corey Raymond has ever coached EB at LSU, and he has not once ever been scared to put a true freshman out there at corner or nickel or safety or wherever it might be if he thought they were good enough. And it's clear that DJ Pickett fits into that category. So I think he's going to play. And by that same token, the other guy that's the lifer here that we've seen kind of approach with recruiting to where they end up playing on the field is Frank Wilson at running back. And he signed Harlan Berry, the number one running back in the country out of New Orleans, then lands another top 10 back in JT Lindsey. And I think you combine that with the uncertainty around Trey Holly's future not being on roster and Caleb Jackson, like where does he fit into this team now that Josh Williams isn't on it anymore? And obviously Caden Durham coming back is your bell cow back. All that to say, Frank is, much like Corey, not been scared to play freshmen. We've seen a lot of freshman running backs, including Durham this past season. So I think that Berry, because of his pass catching skills, will have him on the field a ton. He's just so dynamic, but I'm not going to rule out Lindsey either. I mean, we've seen them spread it to 3 or 4 guys if they feel like they can trust them. So those guys will get looked. There's a couple on offense and defense, but by and large, I think that you're hoping, right, that the real impact comes from these transfers. And if there is another guy to toss into that mix as a potential starter, I'd say Curious Kern, offensive lineman, number 2 interior offensive lineman in the country, a 5-star with On3. Is a guy that can play guard or tackle. So I'm keeping an eye on him as someone, we'll see this spring and into the summer and fall, but I would imagine they kind of move him around a little bit as they figure out these pieces on the O-line and what really will be 4 new starters, or like actually bringing in Braylon Moore as a center, all new starters.
Yeah.
More or less. So where do they all fit? I think you're going to have to move them around a bit. And Kern's one of those guys I think is going to get a very close look from Brad Davis.
Not only does he have the deets and the info on recruiting, but also on Jesse J. He is Shea Dixon. You follow him on Twitter at Shea Dixon. Read his stuff over at On3, the Bengal Tiger. He's here with us every Tuesday. Shea, we appreciate it, man. Talk next week.
All right. Sounds good, Matt. I'll see you later.
Thanks so much for watching the video. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, smash that like button, hit the bell so you're notified when we post a new video, and remember to support BetUS, where right now you can get a 150% bonus on your first deposit and a 125% bonus on your next 2 deposits up to $2,000. Be sure to use that promo code YouTube150.